Do you find yourself stressing about money, looking at your bank account at the end of the week and just being like, man, I already knew there was nothing there. Why am I even checking this? And just, even running into problems with your friends, your significant others, to the point where it's affecting your social life, that you can't do the things that you want to do because you're spending money on things that you don't even want to. Well, in this episode, we're going to be talking about my 5 personal finance tips that changed me from someone who was always stressed about money, didn't even appreciate the value of money, to someone who knows what I'm doing with my money, not an expert level, but a way that does it objectively, consciously, and a very methodical approach that fits my lifestyle. I'm sure these tips can help you in your personal finance journey, and I'm looking forward to sharing it. Now, before we actually get into the premise of this video, I just wanted to share that this is not financial advice. This is just my own personal information that you can take for educational purposes. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is you need to track where you're spending money. This sounds so basic, and I hear you on that, but it's something that I didn't even realize. I was spending money on things that I had no real desire to actually spend money on. And the only way that I could do that is by using an app called Mint. Now, Mint is able to integrate your various bank accounts and credit cards and, track your assets and stuff so you can see where your money's coming in, where your money's coming out, and your actual net worth. This has been a very big game changer for me because I was able to check on things that was spending a lot of money from my end. I believe at the time it was restaurants that were just taking up a lot of money, and I was spending money on, for example, clothing, like shoes and things of that nature. I didn't really want to do that, but after I finished tracking it, I was able to filter in and out what I wanted to and look at what I was spending money on. This was a very big game changer for me, and I'm hoping that you can use this to help you as well. Now, the next thing is going to be related to this, but you need to spend money on things that you actually value and do not spend any money on things that you don't. Now, I'm taking this from Ramit Sethi's book, I Will Teach You How to Be Rich. And one of the main points that he makes in this is that very concept. Like for me, I personally love going out with friends, and it's more so for the social aspect rather than the food. So I try not to go into high-end restaurants, but if I'm, going to a restaurant, paying about $20 for a dinner or something, that's something that I want to spend because it makes me happier, as we found out in our previous video, and I'm able to meet up with a friend, hear how they're doing, and improve my networking skills with them. But things like coffee. Now, you guys might hate me for this, but I'm drinking not Starbucks coffee, I'm drinking Nescafe, the instant coffee. I know, I hear you. Okay, don't unsubscribe yet, but it's just something that isn't too important for me. I buy a $10 cup of Nescafe. It's going to last me about 3 to 6 months, usually on the latter end, rather than the 2 cups of Starbucks coffee I would have, which would be the same price. My productivity is the same level. I'm able to drink coffee, so I'm productive, and I get to save all that money. Now, it may not be coffee for you. Maybe coffee is something that you just love and you do not want to get in that Nescafe game. Hey, I hear you. But spend money on the things that are important for you. If you do not like going out, do not go out. If you want to spend money on experiences, like vacations to places that you want to go to, cut back on the things that you don't want to do. Do not go to nightclubs with friends if that doesn't bring you joy. Or vice versa. Whatever is important for you, you need to do so you can be happy and fulfilled in your life. The next step is to set up an emergency fund. What is an emergency fund? Well, it is a pool of money that you do not touch until there is an emergency. So for me, I think I set up 6 months worth of expenses after I calculated on my Mint app on the money that I would need to keep there. Now, just in case that I've lost a job or I would, be struck with an emergency, maybe I needed physio for a long period of time or my car needed maintenance, things of that nature, I could jump into that pile and know that I do not need to take a loan or that I wouldn't be hooped because, emergencies happen and that's life. So setting that up is very important. It's a balance of how much money you want to put into it. The general rule that I hear is about 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. The con of going longer is that there is inflation, meaning that your money loses value the longer it is. And when you can't invest that money into, let's say, an index fund, which we'll talk about later, your money is losing value as time goes on in terms of purchasing power. So $1 today will not be the same as $1 next year. It will be less. So that's something to consider, but you still want to have a little bit of money on hand so you don't have to rely on high interest loans or things of that nature if you do get into a financial bind. So speaking of the index funds, I want to talk about something right now related to that, and that is investing in stocks. So stocks are very complicated. Again, this is not a financial advice video. I encourage you to do your own research on this, but essentially by investing in the stock market, you're able to, if you have a diversified portfolio, ride along with inflation and hopefully make a little bit of money on top of that. Personally, I'm a very safe investor and I'm just going in for the long term, not looking for yearly things or something like that. I'm looking 20, 30 years and ahead, and I invest in something called index funds. Index funds track a particular market. For example, the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the US, and whatever their funds are going to be, it's the average of all those. So by doing that, I have a very safe investment, although it won't be like a very high thing like we had with Tesla back in, I think, 2020 or 2019. I will still get a rise and I'll be able to beat inflation. And since my money is increasing, I'm happy. And when you're investing in stocks, it's important to note that, there are ups and downs. And that's okay. As long as you look at it from a long-term mindset, you're going to be making money. So the next thing that I thought was very interesting is to give every single dollar a job. What does this mean? Well, have you ever looked at your bank account and let's say you had $400 at the end of this month and you're like, I have $400. The boys asked me to go out. I'll go out. And you spend $400 on a table at your favorite nightclub. You had a fun time, but then that $400 went away. And you're like, man, I don't have any money now. But what if you knew beforehand that, you had to have 20% of that $400 invested in a stock fund, 20% in a savings account? You essentially split that up. When your friends ask you to go out, then you're going to say these exact words: I'm broke. The reason for this is because you know that you have no expendable money for things that you do not want to do. So this hits point number 2, where you're going to spend money on things that you want. And now that you're putting every dollar with a job, you know exactly where your money's going. You have an emergency fund if emergencies arise and can pull from that. And you're able to just really, own the finances the way that you want. You're able to ride through uncertainty, deal with the financial challenges ahead, and don't do things that you don't want to do because you know where everything's going. And similar to a business, you need to be organized. And now when you're financially organized, your life just gets easier, simpler, and filled with less stress. The final point I'm going to make: try not to spend more money than you make. Based on the data by Statistics Canada, every single Canadian, I believe this is 2022 data, but I'll edit in the bio if I'm incorrect for the year, owes $1.86. So almost double compared to what they make. For every single dollar, every Canadian on average owes $1.86. That's crazy. And, it's like when you're going to be paying double of what you're making, how are you going to pay that back? And loans are things that add up exponentially because it's the APR. So every single day there is an interest added on it. And although you won't see it in the initial phase, interest goes up like a parabolic curve. And when it hits that parabolic curve, when you start to notice it, it's too late. You're going to be spending so much of your time paying something off. And if you're able to live a little bit more frugally, doing the things that you want to do, it will help you in the long run tremendously. So, there are things such as mortgages, which were calculated in here, but I'm sure that a lot of your friends do not have a mortgage because it's almost impossible to get a place in Canada nowadays. So, try to be frugal, try to only have the necessities that you'd like. Maybe buy secondhand furniture if you don't need something new, if you're staying somewhere temporarily. These things do add up in the long term, and it can really dramatically change your financial life. So this is just an episode of the anecdotes that have really changed the game for me. I used to be someone who didn't really know too much about money. I didn't really care about money. I didn't understand the value of it. But by applying these things, I felt a lot more competent, felt more powerful. I felt more in control of my finances and even my life. And I hope that these 5 tips can really make that profound impact for you. If this is something that has, please let me know. If you have any other tips, please leave it in the comments below and we'll catch you on the next one. Trust the process, and I wish you well. Cheers.